What would you do if your own father kicked you out of the house on Christmas Day after you spent 10 years fighting for his future? My name's Mackenzie Carter. I'm 28 years old, and I never imagined my homecoming would look like this. The Christmas lights sparkled around the dining room, reflecting off the glassware like everything was perfect. But then, my father slammed his fist on the table. His voice rose sharp and cutting until he uttered the words that shattered what little was left of my faith in him. "You're a burden. Get out of my house." The room fell into stunned silence, my heart already stitched together by sheer grit after 10 years of service and a combat injury that still made my leg throb, shattered all over again. Every single paycheck I'd sent home, every missed birthday, every night spent sleeping in sandstorms while they slept soundly under roofs. I paid for it, didn't matter. They threw me away like trash. But let me back up, because the betrayal didn't start that night. It started years earlier. I just hadn't seen it clearly until now. Growing up, it was just Dad and me in a rundown 2-bedroom on the edge of a quiet Pennsylvania town. My mother left when I was 5, and for years I believed what Dad always told me, that she walked out without looking back, chasing a life that didn't include her own daughter. And for a while it was good. He coached my softball team, helped me build model volcanoes for science class. He worked overtime at the factory, came home smelling like metal and fatigue, and I'd stay up just to hear him call me his little soldier. Back then, he looked at me like I was his world. That gaze disappeared around the time I turned 13. He started coming home late, reeking of cheap whiskey and perfume that wasn't his cologne. Our conversation shrank to mumbles and grunts. My lunch money disappeared. So did the groceries. So did the softness in his eyes. By 15, I was working shifts at the local diner before school, after school weekends. He called it building character. I called it paying bills. But every summer, I escaped. 3 hours north, Grandpa Jack's farm waited for me like a second chance. The air was cleaner, the silence peaceful, and the work honest. Grandpa never talked down to me, never once made me feel like a burden. He'd take my hand small and callous from work and teach me how to mend fences, split wood, and respect myself. A person's worth, he'd say, isn't in what they take, but in what they give when no one's watching. It was there in those long summer days I first understood what real love looked like. Back home, though, things got worse. By my senior year, the house was one bad day away from foreclosure. Dad's drinking had escalated. I found final notices crammed in drawers, and I'd sneak to the bank to cover what I could, draining every cent of my savings. College. Out of the question, my paycheck was keeping the lights on. Then one day, a military recruiter showed up at school. He talked about honor, discipline, education, but all I heard was escape. When I brought the papers home, Dad went on a tear. Military. "Are you trying to kill me with worry?" until I mentioned the signing bonus. Then suddenly he changed tune. "Well, maybe it'll teach you discipline," he muttered, thumbing through the pamphlets and eyeing the benefits like they were lottery tickets. A week after graduation, I shipped out. Basic training nearly broke me, but it also rebuilt me. I learned how to fight, how to lead, how to survive. I climbed ranks fast, my drill sergeant noticed. He pushed me towards specialized communications training. I went from scraping by at a diner to standing in charge of field operations overseas. Every month, I sent money home. At first, it was just a third of my check, then half. Eventually, almost all of it. I didn't need much. Meals came from the mess hall, and I had boots on my feet and a bunk to sleep in. Dad started calling more. Not to check on me, but to talk about home improvements, about how he was finally catching up, about investing in the future. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe that my sacrifice had meaning, that someone was safe because I was in danger. Then came the second deployment. In Afghanistan, I met Thomas. Quiet strength behind soft eyes. He was in communications too smart grounded. He was the kind of man you didn't just trust, you leaned on. We talked about post-military life, about starting a security business for vets. "We'll hire people like us," he said. "Create a family that gets it." We had plans, dreams. And then An IED ended his life and left shrapnel embedded in my right leg and hip. I woke up in a military hospital half-drugged and full of grief. They told me I was lucky to be alive. I didn't feel lucky. I still sent money home, even as I learned how to walk again, even as I fought through grueling rehab sessions. Dad needed a new truck. Caitlin had opportunities. Barbara's business was growing. At least my money was helping someone right. When the doctors told me I couldn't meet physical fitness standards anymore, I didn't cry. I accepted the honorable discharge and my medical retirement package. It was time to go home. I imagined a rebuilt house, warm hugs, maybe even gratitude. Instead, what I found was the biggest lie of my life. But nothing prepared me for the faces that met me at the door or the bedroom I no longer had. And in the next part, I'll tell you how I became a ghost in my own home. Don't go anywhere. The next part is where the betrayal begins to show its real face. I should have known something was wrong when I pulled up and saw the brand new SUV sitting in the driveway. It gleamed like it belonged to someone else, someone successful, someone loved. I stepped inside expecting the familiar creak of floorboards, the scent of lemon polish from the wood my dad used to clean when company came. Instead, I was hit with something artificial air fresheners and designer decor I didn't recognize. Mackenzie, Dad said, barely turning from the kitchen. "You remember I mentioned Barbara, right? I didn't." He never had. "And this is your stepsister, Caitlin." She didn't even nod, just looked me up and down like I was interrupting something. I didn't realize then that to them I was already an intruder. The guest room, which used to be my room, was now Caitlin's art studio. Easels, acrylics, expensive brushes. None of it touched. Just enough of a mess to look used, but nothing created. Just a shrine to potential. I was given a pull-out couch in the basement. No windows. Just boxes of my old childhood things, shoved into corners like the memories had become clutter. For the first few days, I tried to convince myself it was just adjustment. That maybe they were surprised I came home earlier than expected. That maybe they'd warm up. They didn't. I noticed the small things first. Barbara accidentally misplacing my medications. Caitlin playing loud music late at night, mocking me for not being able to sleep. Dad sighing every time I limped across the floor like the sound of my cane embarrassed him. Then it got worse. One morning, Barbara sipped her organic tea and casually asked, "So, when do you think you'll be ready to get a job again? These medical bills must be exhausting for Richard." Medical bills. My insurance covered everything. "I'm still recovering," I said cautiously. "PT applications to transition programs." Barbara just smiled that tight-lipped, condescending smile. "Of course. But we all need to contribute eventually," Caitlin chimed in from the other room. "Lots of veterans get depressed. Maybe you should, see someone." It wasn't concern, it was performance. That night, I heard Barbara complaining to Dad in the kitchen. "She takes up so much space down there, and the cane on the floor, it echoes." "She's been through a lot," Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. "She needs to stop moping and start helping. I started applying for local jobs, retail part-time admin work. But every time I brought up an interview, Barbara would ask if I could reschedule my PT instead. We just have so much going on right now." One morning I tried cooking breakfast. Pancakes, eggs, coffee, a peace offering. Barbara walked in, sniffed the air, and said, "Oh, you use the old skillet. I usually do things a little cleaner." Then dumped the food in the trash and made toast. Caitlin refused to eat it. Said the smell made her queasy. I kept telling myself I'd find a way to coexist, that I could fix it. Then Christmas came. I spent weeks carefully picking out presents. Nothing extravagant, my pension didn't allow it, but personal. For Dad, I found a vintage pocket knife like the one his father gave him. For Barbara, a hand-glazed ceramic serving dish made by a disabled veterans co-op. For Caitlin, a handmade photo album. I'd found some of her childhood photos in boxes and carefully assembled them into a keepsake. They're gifts to me. A generic gift card to a store I'd never stepped foot in, and a book titled Transitioning to Civilian Life Overcoming Dependency. "I picked it out," Barbara said proudly. "Thought it might help you. figure things out. I smiled, said thank you, then slid the book under the couch when no one was looking. Christmas morning was chaos. Barbara barked orders from the kitchen like she was hosting a royal dinner. Caitlin lounged on the couch with her early present, a brand new laptop, already grumbling that it wasn't the newest model. Dad barely looked at me. I offered to help. Got shooed away. Just relax, Barbara snapped. You've done enough. Apparently doing enough meant sending home tens of thousands of dollars over 10 years, while they repainted my walls, remodeled my home, and replaced me in every possible way. That afternoon, the guests arrived. Barbara's clients, Dad's coworkers, Caitlin's boyfriend Troy, a business major with teeth too white and questions too pointed. So, did you ever, kill anyone I choked on my water? Excuse me. Well, it's war, right? I fled to the kitchen, needing to breathe. Barbara followed. Could you at least try to socialize? She hissed. These people matter to your father. Stop making everything about your situation. My situation. That I had left blood in sand and buried the man I loved just to be told I was in the way I didn't trust myself to answer. We sat down to dinner at a table Barbara insisted on importing mahogany antique unnecessary. Dad stood carving the turkey, grinning like he'd earned every slice. I just want to say, this has been a big year for our family, he said. Barbara's business is thriving. Caitlin made the dean's list, and I've recently become an investor in a promising opportunity downtown. He raised his glass. To success and new beginnings. I raised my water, silent. No mention of my return, of my service, of the 10 years I gave. Nothing. After a pause in conversation, I leaned forward. I was thinking about using some of my savings to take a small business course through the VA. They've got a program always looking for handouts, Dad muttered. The entire table fell still. That's what they teach you in the military, right? He added. Everything provided, no personal responsibility. I felt the heat rise in my chest. My breath caught. That's not what I meant, I said carefully. They offer resources to help veterans transition, he mocked. That's all I hear. Meanwhile, you're eating our food, sleeping under my roof, not contributing. I blinked. I've offered to pay rent, buy groceries, with what he snapped. Your disability checks money you get for doing nothing. Barbara placed a hand on his arm. Richard, not now. No, let's talk about it, he continued. 10 years in the military, and what do you have to show for it? A bum leg and nightmares. That's when it happened. The pain, the clarity, the fracture between who I was and who they saw me as. I wasn't their daughter. I was a wallet, a prop, a burden. They say betrayal feels like a knife in the back, but when it comes from your own father, it's more like a slow, suffocating fire burning through everything you thought was safe. That Christmas dinner was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became my battlefield. The turkey was dry. The tension in the room even drier. Dad's work friends made polite conversation. Barbara played the smiling hostess. Caitlin rolled her eyes at every mention of the military, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Troy, her boyfriend, kept sneaking glances at me like I was some kind of zoo exhibit. I'd spent 10 years in service. Missed birthdays, holidays, funerals, sent every penny home. And here I was being treated like a guest overstaying her welcome. But I still tried. I thought I'd use some of my savings to take a business course I offered, Voice Steady, Hopeful. The VA has a program that always looking for handouts. Dad cut in loud enough for everyone to hear. His fork clinked against his plate as he leaned back, wine glass in hand. Whispers, tension. The entire table froze. What I asked, blinking. The military teaches that, doesn't it? He smirked. Everything's handed to you, never had to earn it. And now you're living here, sponging off me. The glass in my hand trembled. I sent you money, every month, for years. Child support, he scoffed. That's what parents are owed. My jaw dropped. I was an adult, Dad, serving my country. Barbara chimed in, lips pursed. Richard managed this house just fine. Whatever you sent was a drop in the bucket. Caitlin added, "It's not like your army money paid for anything important." I looked around the room. Barbara's diamond earrings, Caitlin's designer watch, Dad's new golf clubs in the corner, the SUV parked outside. "What happened to the money, Dad?" I asked. Quiet, direct. The room went silent. His face hardened. "I don't answer to you about finances. Not in my house. The house my money helped save from foreclosure," I said, the burn behind my eyes turning to ice. Then he exploded. "Enough." He roared, slamming his hand on the table. Plates jumped, forks clattered. "You come back here broken and useless and expect to be worshipped. You're a burden, Mackenzie, a DMN burden on this family." Gasps, wide eyes. Caitlin's boyfriend looked like he wanted to vanish into the floor. My stomach dropped. I felt it physically, like something unspooled and snapped inside me. And yet, I didn't cry. Not this time. I set my napkin beside my untouched plate and stood my injured legs screaming beneath me. "You're right, Dad," I said, my voice steady. "I don't belong here." I scanned the faces around the table, so smug, so complicit, so silent. I spent 10 years believing I was supporting my family. Turns out, I was funding a fantasy. "Get your things and get out," he spat, pointing toward the hallway. "Go find somewhere else to play the victim." Barbara winced. One of Dad's friends muttered, "It's Christmas Richard." "Her choice," he barked, "always has to make a scene." I didn't respond. I didn't scream. I just limped toward the stairs, each step pounding like a drumbeat of clarity. Down in the basement, I packed with mechanical precision: meds, military paperwork, my duffel bag, a few precious photos, Thomas's last letter, my service medals, everything I had left. When I returned upstairs, dinner had resumed like nothing happened. Laughter, wine refills, Caitlin scrolling her phone. Only one person met my eyes, Troy, and for the first time he looked genuinely ashamed. At the door, I paused. My father, the man I sent thousands to support, sat smugly at the head of the table, carving into the turkey like he hadn't just carved through his daughter's heart. "Merry Christmas," I said to no one in particular. And then I stepped into the snow. The wind bit through my jacket. The snow soaked my boots. My leg burned. My pride bled. 3 blocks from the house, I stopped under a street lamp, blinking against the cold and the rage. I was homeless, on Christmas. I pulled out my phone. No missed calls, no texts, no one asking if I was okay. I scrolled through my contacts. Old friends moved away, military buddies scattered. Everyone I knew had lives, families, homes. But then, I remembered someone. Grandpa Jack, 3 hours north, a farmhouse, a wood stove, and a past I hadn't touched in years. Would he even want me? Did he still live there? I didn't care. I had nowhere else to go. I slung my duffel bag over my shoulder, gritted my teeth, and began the walk to the bus station. The pain was bad. My leg protested every step, but the cold kept me sharp focused. Breathe in, step, breathe out, step. Same rhythm I used during combat rehab. The station was nearly empty, just a middle-aged attendant behind a cracked plexiglass window. He glanced up. His eyes softened when he saw the limp. The duffel bag, the military patch on my coat. "Merry Christmas," he said gently. "You okay, Miss Ticket to Riverdale?" I said, voice hoarse. "Nearest stop to the Carter farm." He checked the schedule. 1 bus left. Leaves in 20. You made it just in time. I handed him cash. He waved it off. "My son's a Marine," he said. "Consider it a gift." The kindness nearly undid me. On the bus, I sat near the window. Just me, a veteran in a faded cap across the aisle, and an elderly couple quietly holding hands. As the bus pulled away, my hometown disappeared behind curtains of snow. I didn't look back. I thought of Thomas, of Afghanistan, of the nights I wrote letters home no one answered. I wondered, was I ever really part of that family or just their income source? The man across the aisle caught my eye. "Where you headed, soldier?" he asked. "My grandfather's farm," I said softly. "If he still wants me." He nodded like he understood everything. Coming home's the hardest deployment of all. The bus ride to Riverdale felt like traveling through time, snow-covered fields rolling past like the memories I was too exhausted to unpack. Each jolt of the road pulsed through my leg, but the real ache was somewhere deeper. I kept picturing my father's face twisted in rage, the sound of him calling me a burden, the silence of everyone else around the table. 10 years of sacrifice reduced to inconvenience. I pressed my forehead to the icy window, heart pounding with every mile closer to the one place I prayed still felt like home. The station was quiet when I arrived. A handful of holiday lights blinked feebly in the window. The rest of town was asleep under a fresh blanket of snow. 7 miles. That's how far Grandpa Jack's farm sat from the bus stop. Under normal conditions, I could have walked it even with my limp, but with snowdrifts knee-high and cold slicing through my jacket like glass, I wasn't sure I'd make it halfway. I looked up and down the street, wondering if I'd have to spend the night on a bench. Then a miracle. A rusted pickup idled outside the only open diner, its exhaust fogging the night. I approached the driver's side, cautiously praying they weren't dangerous. The window rolled down and the face inside blinked in surprise. "You're Jack Carter's granddaughter, aren't you? The one who went off to the army?" I nodded slowly. "Mackenzie. I just got in, trying to get to the farm." "Well, hop in, soldier," she said with a warm smile. "I'm Ruth. I run the bakery. Used to deliver fresh loaves to your grandpa every Tuesday. He's still as stubborn as ever." Relief poured over me like heat. The drive was quiet snow swirling in the headlights. Ruth filled the silence with small talk, local gossip, weather complaints, fond stories about Grandpa Jack. "Every week he talks about you," she said. "Shows off your pictures to everyone who'll listen. Kept all your letters, too." My throat tightened. "He still keeps pictures of me, of course. Said you were the only one who never took more than you gave." As we turned onto the long gravel drive, the porch light flicked on, casting a golden halo around the house. One window glowed a warm beacon in the dark. "He's home," Ruth said, and judging by that light, still waiting. I stepped out into the snow, each step sinking deep. My duffel dragged behind me. The wind stung, but it couldn't cut through the heat rising in my chest. Hope, fear, shame, all tangled. What if Dad had poisoned this relationship too? What if I'd lost this family as well? But before I could knock, the front door creaked open. And there he was, thinner than I remembered, more stooped, but those eyes warm, steady, familiar. "Mackenzie," he whispered like a prayer. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." And just like that, I broke. He pulled me into a hug, and for the first time since I'd stepped off the bus, I let myself sob. The kitchen was just as I remembered it. Checkered curtains, ancient stove, and the smell of cinnamon and old wood. A small Christmas tree sat in the corner, decorated with handmade ornaments I'd crafted as a kid. He'd kept them all. He made cocoa without asking, sliding the steaming mug toward me like no time had passed. "You're frozen," he said. "Sit. Rest." As I sipped, I took in the walls lined with framed photos of me. My graduation, softball uniform, military portrait, even a newspaper clipping of my unit's humanitarian mission in Kandahar. "You've been keeping tabs on me?" I asked, voice breaking. "Always," he said softly. "You're all the family I've got." That simple sentence, after everything I'd endured, felt like a balm on my rawest wounds. I told him everything. From the day I enlisted to the Christmas dinner explosion, Thomas, the injury, the lies, the silence, my father's betrayal. He listened, never interrupted, just clenched his jaw and blinked away tears. When I finished, he stood abruptly and disappeared into his study. He returned with a stack of letters bound in twine. "Your mother," he said. "I've been waiting years for the right time." My breath caught as I recognized the handwriting. Letter after letter, dozens, all addressed to me. The earliest dated just weeks after she abandoned us. "My dearest Mackenzie, I know your father is telling you I left because I didn't love you. That couldn't be further from the truth." The truth unraveled in front of me. She hadn't walked away. She'd fought hard, filed for custody, sent child support, birthday gifts, Christmas cards, called every week, all intercepted. He told her Grandpa said bitterly that if she kept pushing, he'd disappear with you. She believed him. My mother eventually moved to Colorado, became a college professor. She waited, hoping one day I'd reach out. But I never did, because I never knew. Did you know I asked, voice trembling? Not at first, Grandpa admitted. Your father cut me off too. Told me I wasn't welcome if I kept siding with her. He paused, eyes heavy. I didn't find out until a few years ago, when you made the news for that rescue in Kandahar. Helen saw it, contacted me. We compared stories, realized the truth. The truth, my mother didn't abandon me. She loved me, fought for me, was blocked at every turn by the man I trusted most. But the night had more revelations left. There's something else, Grandpa said gently, about the money. Of course there was. Your other grandparents, your mom's folks, left you a college trust fund, almost $70,000. Your father was the trustee until you turned 25. He drained it. The floor dropped beneath me. Gone. All of it. College, security, a future, and the money I sent from the military. Most of it was used to pay off loans he'd taken out in my name. Using my power of attorney, he hadn't just misused the money, he'd systematically stolen from me. For years. Your mother found out in her divorce settlement. She tried to contact the military, but by then, you were deployed, hard to reach. She kept everything. Her lawyer kept records. I have them all. I sat in stunned silence as Grandpa laid out the final document. My mother's will. She'd left me her house, her savings, her journals, a fresh start, a legacy. Tears streamed down my face. Why now, I asked. Why not sooner? I tried, he said. Every time you visited, I tried. But your dad, he always had a reason you couldn't call. Then came your deployments. And I worried you were too far gone to hear the truth. That night, I stayed up reading her letters. Every word a connection I never knew I had. Every paragraph another stitch in the hole that had lived in my chest for 23 years. At dawn, I finally fell asleep, her compass pendant clutched in my hand. A gift from the mother I never truly knew, meant to help me find my way. Some confrontations burn slowly like embers waiting for air. This one, it ignited like dry brush in the heat of August. 10 days after Christmas, I drove Grandpa's old pickup into town with a folder of evidence beside me. Bank statements, trust, documents, letters my father thought he'd buried. And sitting beside me, calm as ever, was Edmund Lawson, Grandpa's friend, and one of the county's most respected attorneys. We weren't just here for closure. We were here for justice. The insurance office where my father worked hadn't changed. A squat beige building on Main Street, sandwiched between a law office and a pharmacy. I parked across the street and stared at it, breathing deep. The same building where he used to bring me after school, where I'd sit coloring in the back room while he crunched numbers and shook hands. Now I was here to tear it all down. You don't have to do this in person, Edmund reminded me. We can file the paperwork and let the legal system handle it. I touched the compass pendant at my neck, my mother's gift, and shook my head. No. He needs to see my face. He needs to know I know. We entered at 2:15 p.m. strategically between his lunch break and first afternoon meeting. The receptionist, a young woman who clearly didn't recognize me, looked up. Hi, can I help you? Please tell Richard Carter that his daughter and attorney Edmund Lawson are here. Her eyes widened. Everyone in this town knew Edmund. She nodded silently and disappeared into the back. Minutes later, my father appeared. He froze in the doorway. His confident posture deflated at the sight of Edmund's briefcase. Mackenzie, he said cautiously, this is unexpected. Is there somewhere private we can talk? I asked, calm, and collected my voice, not betraying the storm underneath. He led us to a conference room. Close the door carefully. If this is about Christmas, Barbara and I were just talking and maybe we overreacted. This isn't about Christmas, I said, cutting him off. This is about 23 years of lies. Edmund opened the briefcase and began placing documents on the table with precision, each thud a chapter of his downfall. Mr. Carter Edmund began, "We represent your daughter in a matter of financial fraud, identity theft, and misappropriation of trust funds." Dad blinked, laughed once, sharp and bitter. "This is nonsense. I've seen the letters I said flatly, all of them. The ones you intercepted from Mom, the custody agreement you violated, the trust fund you drained." His smile cracked. "She abandoned us," he said weakly. "No," I snapped. "She didn't. She fought for me. You lied. You took her child support checks and made sure I never saw her birthday cards." I slid a stack of financial records across the table. "You stole my college fund, took out loans in my name while I was deployed, pocketed my military paychecks for 10 years. I'm your father," he said defensively. "That money went to family needs, Barbara's business, Caitlin's tuition, your gambling debts," I added coldly. His mouth opened, closed. No denial. "I've seen the bank records," I said. "I know everything." For a moment, panic flickered in his eyes. Then came the rage. "There are explanations," he insisted. "Misunderstandings. No jury would save it." Edmund cut in smoothly. "You have 3 options. 1, we press criminal charges. Given the financial crimes against a military service member, you're looking at federal penalties potentially up to 15 years in prison." Dad blanched. 2, we pursue civil damages, which you will lose, resulting in asset seizure, wage garnishment, and public ruin. He swallowed hard. 3, Edmund continued sliding the final document across the table. "You sign a settlement agreement. Full financial restitution. Transfer of the house deed since your daughter paid the mortgage for years. Legal admission of misconduct. You expect me to sign away everything?" he hissed. "I expect you to pay back what you stole," I said. He scoffed. "If I sign that, I'll have nothing." "Welcome to the reality you created for me," I replied. Barbara wasn't in the room, but her voice came through the hall before she barged in, eyes wild. "You've destroyed us," she spat. "Are you happy?" I met her gaze with calm clarity. "I didn't destroy anything. I'm just taking back what's mine." Dad looked back and forth between us, the cracks in his control now a full collapse. "I need time," he muttered, "to speak to a lawyer." "You have 24 hours, Edmund said. "After that, we file with the DA." As we stood to leave, my father reached for one final, desperate angle. "We're family," he said. "I raised you. That counts for something." I turned my hand on the doorknob, heart pounding. "Yes, you raised me," I said. "You taught me that family was loyalty, so I was loyal to a fault. You taught me sacrifice, so I gave everything. But what you never taught me was love." His expression flickered, but I didn't let him speak. "What Mom would have taught me if you hadn't erased her is that real love isn't conditional. It doesn't keep score or hold people hostage. You have no idea what I gave up for you," he said bitterly. "No," I said. "But I know exactly what you took from me." We left without another word. The next 24 hours were a blur. I checked into a hotel I couldn't bear to sleep under the roof I once thought of as home. Then the call came. Edmund's voice on the other end. He signed. Relief. Not joy, not triumph. Just the cold, quiet release of finally being free. I returned to the office to sign the final paperwork. Dad looked haggard. Barbara avoided my gaze. Then Caitlin stormed in red-eyed, holding the documents. "Is it true?" she demanded. All of it, Barbara tried to hush her, but Caitlin wasn't having it. The money from my semester abroad. For your investments, it was stolen from her silence. That was all the answer she needed. She turned to me, guilt etched across her face. I didn't know, I swear, I believed her. She was young, protected, ignorant. "It's okay," I said softly. "I'm not here to punish you." Some people build monuments from marble. I built mine from pain and purpose. After the legal dust settled, I took the check, the restitution from my father, and didn't look back. He had signed over the deed to the house, liquidated a portion of his retirement account, and agreed to a public apology in court. It wasn't enough to fix what he broke, but it was enough to start something. I moved back into the house my mother once fought for. Her photos still lined the attic. Her scent lingered in the cedar closets. I could almost hear her humming in the kitchen, the ghost of a life I never truly got to live. But I wasn't there to mourn. I was there to build. I called it Compass House. Not a shelter, not a halfway stop. A home. For female veterans coming back from deployment with no family, no resources, no sense of where home even was. Women like me, used up, discarded, told we were burdens. The first time I walked through the doors as director, I wore my service pin and my mother's compass pendant around my neck, a reminder of who I came from and what I was returning to. My first resident was Angela, a Marine who'd lost her leg in Afghanistan. Her family refused to house her because she was too angry. Then came Priya, dishonorably discharged for a mental breakdown her commanders refused to treat. Then Jordan, who'd been sleeping in her car, afraid to ask for help. Each woman carried her own war, and not just the one overseas. With the settlement funds, Grandpa's help, and community grants Edmund helped me secure, we expanded Compass House from a 2-bedroom home to a multi-acre retreat. Therapy rooms, art studios, a garden, therapy dogs, a full-time nurse. Every Friday we held bonfire nights. No lectures, no agendas. Just stories. Real, raw stories of women who served, were discarded, and found one another through pain and purpose. I didn't see my father again, but Caitlin reached out 6 months later. She asked to meet at the local coffee shop. Her face had changed, less arrogance, more grief. I sold the car, she said quietly, and the purses, the jewelry. She slid an envelope across the table. It was a cashier's check, half her college savings. I know it doesn't undo anything she whispered, but I didn't know. I really didn't. I nodded. I believe you. Do you hate me? No, I said, but I've had to rebuild myself from ash, and I don't owe that to anyone anymore. She nodded, then asked if she could volunteer at Compass House. I said yes. Barbara never apologized. That was fine. I didn't build Compass House for people like her. I built it for the girls in uniform whose families deleted them the moment they stopped performing, for the women who came home with medals and nightmares and were told to get over it, for every Christmas morning that ended in silence. Last December, I hosted a holiday dinner at Compass House. We made roasted turkey-baked cinnamon apples and homemade rolls. There were no fancy platters, no false toasts, just mismatched chairs, warm lights, and women singing off-key to Mariah Carey. Halfway through the night, Angela handed me a wrapped box. Inside was a mug that read, "Not a burden." A damn force of nature. I laughed. I cried. I drank cocoa from it every night after. They say home is where the heart is, but sometimes home is where your heart was broken and you rebuild anyway. I never got to have a mother-daughter reunion, but I made sure her voice lived on in the walls of Compass House, in every woman who walks through its doors and is told you are not too much, you are not too broken, you are not a burden, you are the storm they never saw coming. And I'll be here, quiet, steady, and unshakable, helping each one find her way home.